Hi everyone, and welcome to another video. If you celebrate, I hope you had a great Christmas. If you don't celebrate, I hope you had a good December in general. Since we are now approaching the end of the year, I thought it would be a good time to talk about how I use my journal to reflect on every year. And this is something I've been doing since I was about 14, I want to say. Basically, I like to sit down at the end of every year, usually on New Year's Eve itself, in the morning or something, and just write a big old reflection on the year that has just passed to remind myself of what happened, process anything big or eventful that happened, reflect on things I'm happy about in the previous year and things that perhaps I might want to change in years going forward. And yeah, basically just provide a summary of the year and the things it taught me for my future self to look back on. I'm going to do this mostly live today. It's going to be a slightly more casual, chatty video where I just kind of journal and talk about why I'm journaling what I'm journaling. But I did actually do the first little task in my review off camera because it took me ages. Every year I write an events list, basically everything that happened in each month of the year. I don't have a very good memory naturally, so what I do for this is essentially flip through my journals from the year to figure out what happened when, and I then write a big list of it. And this took me a while because I write a lot in my journals and it can sometimes be hard to pick out what's actually the important events stuff and what's just me rambling about nonsense. So yeah, I did that off camera to spare you having to watch me do that. And you'll see I record a range of things in this. I record fun stuff that happened, like when a friend came round and I made her mushroom risotto and we watched Digging for Britain, which is coming back next week. My favourite of all the archaeology shows. I wrote down when we went on holiday to Rome and the Vatican and Pompeii, when we went out for the day to Knaresborough, when Taylor Swift's re-recorded albums came out. Fun things both big and small. But I also make sure to write down anything major that happened that perhaps wasn't so positive. I think it's important to remember the year as it truly was and not like a sanitized version of it. So yeah, I do try to write down anything tricky that happened that is particularly major. Like, I'm not going to write down everything that happened that annoyed me. I do save it for like major events. For example, I wrote down in April that it was the first time my nana's birthday went by since she passed away. And that was tricky. What else? Oh, when I got a really bad infection and ended up in the urgent care. Luckily, it seems that not many bad things actually happened this year, which is nice. Okay, I had to stop filming there for a second because my cat nuzzled the tripod and knocked it over. Thanks, cat. Constantly trying to sabotage everything I do. Anyway, what I was about to say is I write down the good, the bad, and also the important, like big realizations I had, big changes I made. So like in January last year, I realized that I didn't actually want to be a novelist, which I thought was my dream since I was like 11. But then I realized I don't actually enjoy writing fiction, which could be a barrier to that. And of course, another big important thing I wrote about is my autism assessment, which took up kind of the middle of last year and when I got my diagnosis, because that was a very important change, probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. So yeah, this is the list of events. I will write about them perhaps in a little more detail in the actual review, which by the way, I should have mentioned this at the start, but I forgot. What I'm doing today is me like planning the yearly review. This isn't what it looks like in its final form. I'll be writing the final review in my like private journal because there's some stuff that I'll want to write about that I don't want to mention on the internet. So yeah, probably should have mentioned that at the start, but forgot. Anyway, this is the events list. It's how I'll kind of start the review with like literally the basics of what happened in the year. And then the next thing I like to do based on the events is write kind of an overarching theme of the year. And I will do this at the bottom of this page because it will annoy me if I don't use this space up because I'm allergic to empty space. So I tried to make the theme basically one word, just like a one word summing up of 2023 or whatever year it is. And for me, that is probably transformation this past year because I am a completely different person to who I was this time last year in a good way. I'm much happier. I like to think I'm much healthier, mentally at least, physically. Still need to work on that. I am also an actual diagnosed autistic person, which, yeah, big change, big transformation there. And I've kind of transformed my life over the last year to be a life that better suits an autistic person, because turns out trying to live like a non-autistic person when you are autistic leads to just severe burnout, and I don't really want to live like that anymore. So yeah, this was a big transformative year for me of discovering who I truly was and kind of modifying my life to better suit that person, that version of me that I want to take into the future. And this shows to me like how unexpected life can be, because I did not go into 2023 expecting it to be like transformative. I kind of went into it expecting it to be one to just like grit my teeth and get through, you know? But here we are. All right, next up, let me consult my little notes app list of stuff to write about. Major learnings, I don't even know if that's a word. Is that a word? Things I learned and kind of like breakthroughs I had. If you're wondering, by the way, where I got these headings from, I kind of just made them up in my head. Like, this is basically everything I've decided to write about over the years. I think the first time I did this, I just did events, and it's like slowly built up over the years as I've been like, oh no, actually, I also want to remember this thing. So yeah, anyway, what did I learn this year? What breakthroughs did I have? Well, big thing would be the autism, wouldn't it? That's a pretty big thing to learn about yourself, that you've been living with an undiagnosed developmental disability for 28 years of your life. It's a lot, but obviously it's for the best, and it's a learning that I am very glad I have had. Anyway, I'm not going to blabber on about that again. Let's move on to other things I learned, one of which was that I need to move my body more, and I learned this the hard way because I now have several aches and pains that are just from not ever exercising. I have a chronic shoulder thing going on that I have to have physiotherapy for. Yeah, basically, I didn't really move very much in 2023. I was very much a duvet burrito for much of the year, some of which was necessary, obviously. Like, when you have chronic illnesses, it's hard to move your body a lot of the time, especially if you're in pain. It's, in fact, not advisable to move your body sometimes. For example, if you're having a migraine. But at the same time, in the times when I'm not unwell, I think for my own health, I need to just do some stretching even, go for a walk, just do something to keep myself all loose and limber, because right now I am neither of those things, let me tell you. Another thing I learned this year is I'm much more resilient than I thought I was. I went through some big changes at work this year. Past me would have just completely freaked out and melted down because change is not something I enjoy. But this year I actually dealt with it very well. Like, there were some stressful moments. There was some stress crying, like, it happens, but I definitely dealt with it much better than I have in previous years. So I feel like I've developed a resilience and an adaptability that I didn't realise I had. So that's fun. Should come in handy in future years, because life is full of unexpected change, is what I'm learning the longer I live on this planet. What else did I learn? Skills. Did I learn any skills? Video editing and video recording. That is definitely something I learned, and I will talk about this more later, but again, extremely glad I pushed myself to do that. This is a nice list, actually. I learned more than I thought I did. I'm sure there's probably other things I learned, but I'm going to leave it there because that is quite a chunky list that, especially when I flesh it out in the real review, is going to be pretty long. So let's move on to the next thing, which is things I'm proud of. Yay! Things I'm proud of. Well, number one, I'm proud of myself for just like getting through some trickier times, especially at the end of the year. November, geez, what was in the air in November? I feel like we all just suffered. So I got through trickier times, and the autism assessment process, which is, it's exhausting, to be honest. It wasn't necessarily difficult. I mean, there were painful parts of it because, in my experience at least, because I had undiagnosed autism for like 28 years, I went through some tricky things that I now realise were because I'm autistic, but at the time I didn't. And when you're answering like all the questions on the assessment forms about like, have you ever struggled socially? You kind of have to relive all of that to write it down. So I had to write, you know, all of my biggest social faux pas in a document for the doctor to read, to be like, oh yeah, that's because of the autism. So that was emotional. But, you know, I got through it, and I'm glad I got through it. And shout out to the doctor who conducted my assessment, to be fair. She did everything she could to make it a pleasant process for me. She was so supportive, and that is something I do not take for granted, because I know a lot of people have generally dreadful assessment experiences, and that was not the case for me. It was more just an affirming and validating process with occasional tricky moments. Anyway, yeah, got through that, which was not a simple endeavour, mostly because of the exhaustion, to be honest. I did not realise how tiring the assessment process would be. So pro tip for anyone going through the assessment process, or who's planning to, you will be tired. Plan to sleep a lot, both during, after, just sleep. You'll need to. Other stuff I'm proud of is, my YouTube channel. I cannot believe that A, I actually gained the confidence to do this, and B, that people like it. Like, I still can't believe that this is real. So I'm extremely proud of myself for doing that. Also kind of Instagram relatedly, I've been posting on there a lot more. Yeah, I'm proud of myself for putting myself out there in a way that is scary, like sharing both your like creative work, in my case my journal, but also just yourself on the internet can be, well, it is terrifying, because the internet can be a very unforgiving and ruthless place, and you never know if you're going to attract super kind people, like the people who do watch my channel. I've never experienced anything other than kindness in the comments or anything, but you don't know if you're going to get that side of the internet, or the side of the internet that tells you that you don't deserve to like breathe air because they didn't like the way you write the letter K. You just never know what you're going to get. So it is quite scary, and that put me off for a while, as well as people telling me that it was a bad idea, who I shouldn't have listened to. But anyway, yeah, glad that I finally pushed myself to do that, and I'm proud of the work I've done so far, and I'm excited for the plans I have in 2024. And yeah, this has just been an overwhelmingly positive thing that I did this year. What else I'm proud of? This is hard. I find it hard to be proud of myself, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. But I'm sure there's other stuff that I should be proud of. Oh, I suppose I'm proud of myself for making hard choices at work and like moving roles. It was scary. Like, I moved into a completely different role, like more technical side of things, when I've never seen myself as a particularly technical person, and all of my other jobs have been like writing or editing, or like a brief time in a call centre, which we won't talk about. Although I did meet my fiance there, so it wasn't all bad. Anyway, I basically really dove into a completely unknown type of work. Not quite sure if it would be for me, but I gave it a go anyway, and it is for me. So yeah, I'm proud of myself for taking that big step that I think was the right one. Really glad I did that. Really proud of myself for taking such a big step that, again, I probably never would have had the confidence to do even this time last year. So yeah. Oh, you know what? This is a less serious one, but still want to note it down. I'm proud of myself for getting most of my hair cut off. I used to have extremely long hair, but then it quickly became clear to me that actually maintaining super long hair is just awful. Like, it's so stressful. My hair would look good on like a day one wash, and then for the rest of the time it would just look absolutely awful and dead. So yeah, in May of this year I decided to get most of it cut off, because I realised that it's just not for me, that level of maintenance. I really just need hair that I can brush quickly and it's fine. So yeah, I'm quite proud of myself for that change, because having long hair kind of became part of my identity, which is why I was kind of resistant to cut it off at first. But I realised, like, I just need to do this, you know? And I'm glad I did. I think I suit shorter hair. And the final thing I will write that I'm proud of is restructuring my life after my autism diagnosis and setting the boundaries I needed to basically not be burned out all the time anymore. Because I have been permanently burned out since the age of about 15, and I could not be doing with that anymore. The doctor who diagnosed me, on the day I went for my appointment where she diagnosed me, she basically said to me that the most important takeaway she wanted me to get from this assessment is that I needed to take every step I could to avoid burnout, because it was evident I was quite badly suffering because of it, and she felt quite strongly that I would struggle going forward if I didn't set boundaries with people and with myself, to not push myself to do things that I'm not able to do or that severely drain my energy if I'm already feeling drained. Basically, she told me I need to focus more on recharging my batteries rather than just like constantly giving all my energy to other people and to work. And yeah, basically just needed to manage my energy better and focus more on nourishing myself rather than just giving all the time. I'm proud of myself for taking some real steps toward achieving that. Like, I'm not perfect at it. I still probably don't always look after myself as well as I should and commit to things that I perhaps shouldn't because I actually need the rest. But, you know, it's a balance. And I also went too far the other way for a while and just did nothing. And I don't think that's right for me either. Like, I think I need to find a balance between not doing so much that I burn myself out, but also not doing so little that I start like losing my mind a little bit. So yeah, 2024 is hopefully going to be a year when I can find out what that balance looks like for me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's finish talking about 2023 first. And I'm going to move on to the next category of stuff I like to record, and that is the media I consumed that year, because media is just super important to me. Books, films, music especially, like a lot of those things are connected to my special interests. Games, of course, how did I forget that? I like to keep a record of what I was particularly enjoying in any given year. So let's do this systematically. What TV? To be honest, I'm not a big TV and film person, and I tend to just watch the same couple of shows again and again because autism. But the things I did watch this year are Digging for Britain. It's an archaeology show. There was a week in January where my fiance was away, and then the week after that, we couldn't see each other because he caught a certain illness while he was there, and we had to, you know, isolate away from each other. And I basically kept myself entertained by watching Digging for Britain. Also watched a lot of What We Do in the Shadows. I love that show so much. We finally watched, I don't even think the most recent series, the one before that. It took a while to get to the UK, so we watched that last year and also rewatched a lot of the old episodes because they just bring me so much joy. Something about the way Nandor says creepy paper will always get me, you know? And what else? Watched the Eras Tour movie like 4 times. No regrets. Watched a lot of sport this year, actually. Really enjoyed the Rugby World Cup, although England didn't win, but I mean, we were never going to win. Let's be real. When do we ever win anything? And yeah, I think that's about it, to be honest. I'm sure there's other stuff that I'm missing, but these are like the main things. As I say, I'm not like a big TV and film person. I am, however, a big video game person. So what did I play? I started last year by playing a lot of Disney Dreamlight Valley, which I got completely addicted to over my Christmas break last year. I also played a bit of Story of Seasons, Pioneers of Olive Town. I loved it. It's just cozy, wholesome vibes. If you're not familiar with the franchise, it's a farming sim. It's kind of what Stardew Valley is based on. It's like a different art style, but it's essentially the same gameplay. It's really fun. Really enjoyed it. Never actually like finished my farm, but I don't know if finished is even a thing in these types of games, you know? Might go back to it at some point, but yeah, I really enjoyed that. Then I kind of took a break from video games for a big chunk of the start of the year. I just wasn't feeling it. Read a lot of books instead, but I eventually got drawn back in because I got re-addicted to Animal Crossing. Something about it just scratches an itch in my soul. It's just so low stakes and cozy. And just, you know, if you've had a long day at work and you just want something to sink into and not have to think for a while, like Animal Crossing's great for that. But apart from Animal Crossing, of course, the other major thing this year was Tears of the Kingdom, which I still have not finished, or in fact, made that much progress in story-wise. I think I mentioned this in a previous video, but basically I spent like 65 to 70 hours just kind of like running around the map, finding stuff and like exploring and fusing random objects together and just like prattling about basically, and didn't do the story. But then I got burned out on it because I played it so much, but I hadn't done the story. So now I've just got like so many hours sunk into it, and yet I've made like no progress. Would like to finish that in 2024 at some point. I did also, actually thinking about it, replay Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door on my old GameCube, which still works. Had a great time, and then after I'd done that, they announced they're remastering it for the Switch, and now I kind of wish I hadn't played it again so recently, because now I feel like I don't want to buy the Switch version and just play it again, having played it so recently. Anyway, it was a good time. If you're thinking about getting it for Switch when it comes out, do. It's great. A lot of fun. Okay, I think that is it. Yeah, I'm going to say that's it for games. Books. Now, with books, I could write all 24 books I read this year, but that would take forever. So I'm going to instead write the kind of broad strokes of the types of books I enjoyed this year. And I got really back into fantasy, especially fantasy with historical or romance elements. What else did I read a lot of? historical fiction, I suppose. I always do. Hamnet was probably my best historical fiction read of the year. Also just read a lot of sad books. That's not a genre, but I'm gonna put it anyway because it's true. I don't know why I decided to torture myself like that and just read multiple actually tragic books in a row, but I did. I have no regrets really because they were all great, but it was an emotional time in my life. Reading like Hamnet, Circe, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, Sorrow and Bliss, like all around the same time. Oof, it was a lot. I think that's about it really. Just read a lot of the same types of books, I guess. We will close with music. Now this comes as a surprise to no one, but I mostly listened to Taylor Swift this year. Obviously, I listened to a lot of Midnights. That only came out late 2022, and obviously there's some like recency bias going on there, but I really do love that album so much. I also love Folklore and Evermore. I listened to them a lot this year, especially actually after seeing the Eras Tour movie. Like the Eras Tour sets of those two are just so good. Like the Folklore one, oh. I also listened to a lot of 1989 Taylor's version. Obviously Speak Now, Taylor's version came out as well, and I did listen to that a bit, but 1989, just the perfect album. Just the perfect pop album. Love it. Had it on repeat. The vault tracks, so good. I think that's about it for Taylor Swift. I'll just, name 4 out of her 10 albums. We'll move on to other things, which include Gracie Abrams. The National, of course, who we saw live in September. That was very good. Florence and the Machine. Kind of rediscovered Florence and the Machine this year. Also Boy Genius. And by extension, listened to a lot of Phoebe Bridgers as well. That's probably the main stuff. This is going to be a nice little snapshot of what I was enjoying this year. Okay, another thing that I do in this review that is kind of another, I prepared one earlier. Blue Peter vibes. If you're not British, sorry, you're not going to get that reference. Is I like to do a photo for every month of the year. And I've already printed those out. So I'm going to cut them out obviously and stick them in and just write a little blurb about what each one shows. But I'll talk about that now. This was January. And it was one of the few times we went out in January because, as previously mentioned, partner went on a trip, came back with a certain affliction that meant we couldn't leave the house. So this was a very nice memory of January, the time when we actually went out. And I remember that day, we went to Flat White Kitchen in Durham, which does the best pancakes I've ever tasted in my entire life. And I've had a lot of pancakes in my life, let me tell you. Anyway, that was January. February was a pretty quiet month, so I just kind of printed out a picture of the cat. Can't go wrong with that. March was when we went on holiday to Rome. This is in the Forum, and you can kind of see some nice ruins in the background. This was my birthday trip. April's picture is from when I went to Harrogate with my friend Ruby, and we went to Betty's Tea Room, and it was a great day, and this was a great pastry. May's picture was when I got my hair chopped, because it was a big deal. June, this was Tynemouth. I went there for one of my autism assessment appointments, and it's just a beautiful place. I've never been before, but it has a medieval priory. It's by the sea. It has loads of really nice, really artsy cafes. I went to one that specialises in toast. And yeah, I just really had a good time in Tynemouth. Would love to live there, but oh my God, is it expensive. Moving to the second half of the year. This is a picture of the cat on my partner's birthday when she just had the time of her life with the wrapping paper. He was the one celebrating, but she probably had the best time out of all of us. Not because we had a bad time, we had a great time. But nothing makes that cat happier than paper. August, this is Knaresborough. Because the photo's so small, you can't really see, but there's a viaduct. It's really pretty. Really enjoyed seeing that. September, this is a photo of the Leeds Arena where we went to see the National. And they had these really nice fairy lights on the tree outside. So I just snapped a photo and I thought it looked nice. For October, this is Durham Market Square at sunset from a weekend where I had loads of fun plans all at once. It was the weekend where we saw the Eras Tour movie, and then I met my favourite historian, and me and my friend went for cake. It was just a great weekend. And this was a photo I took, I think, on the Friday. November is me and my friend Ruby when we went to Bamburgh Castle, which was a lovely day out. And December was when we got our first snow. And there's not much of it in that photo, but we did get more. And then it melted just so suddenly. And we've had none since. So don't know if 2024 is going to bring some snow, but December was a slight disappointment on that score, not going to lie. Moving on though to the last thing I want to write notes about, and that's kind of more looking forward to 2024. I already did a big intentions page, but this, I'm just going to make some brief notes on things I'd like learned in 2023 that made me want to do something in 2024, if that makes sense. So it's basically changes based on all of the above. In summary, those are going outside more. Really need to do that. Did not do that near enough in 2023. It's very hard when you work from home, you know? It's easy to literally just sit in the house all week, especially when you like get groceries delivered or whatever. You don't even have your weekly Tesco trip. It's, yeah, very easy to become a hermit, but it's not actually that good for me. So yeah, moving my body more, already discussed that one. Then strengthening my boundaries even further, especially regarding like my energy levels and what I can and can't do, especially for other people. And let's see, I'm sure there was something else. Yeah, that was it. Finishing more stuff that I already have. And I talked a lot about this in my 2024 like intentions video, but basically instead of constantly buying new books and games, finishing some of the things that I already have or have already started in the case of Tears of the Kingdom. Basically just making the most of what I've already got rather than feeling like I constantly need more things. Will be good, I think, for the planet, for my bank balance, and for my happiness. So that's the notes I've taken on my 2024 review. I'll write that up in my journal, probably on New Year's Eve. I like doing it on New Year's Eve. It just feels right, you know? And I probably won't show the final version because there will be some more private stuff in there that I haven't put in these notes. But I hope this has been good inspiration for anyone else who was thinking that they wanted to review the year in their journal, but you know, you weren't sure what to do. Hopefully this has been helpful. And if not, hopefully it's at least been fun to listen to me ramble about 2023, which was a big year for me, but mostly in a good way. Very happy with where I've ended up and very excited for 2024 and everything it's hopefully going to bring. And on that note, I will end this video. Thank you very much for watching, both today and all the videos I've posted this year. Thank you again. Still can't believe how supportive this community is. I hope you have a great new year. And I'll see you in the next video, which will be introducing another book into my system. Long story short, I have a Hobonichi Weeks now, on top of my cousin. But yeah, I'll see you all next year. Oh God, that's scary to think. How are we already here? All right, before I spiral into an existential crisis, goodbye, love you all, have a great new year.